You know, many hockey fans who were especially my age, over the age of 50, looking at this guy as the guru of hockey. What he's forgotten of the sport, none of us will ever remember. Probably the most important, what he called North American writer about the sport. And get this, that's not his expertise. He's more of an expert on the New York subway system than anybody else. A big fan of subways worldwide. And of course, if you live in New York, you got to be a fan of the Rangers, the Islanders, and all the New Jersey, New York teams. And this guy, my God, what a great writer. I first read his stuff when I was 6 years old. And the reason why I read so well is because his writing style is perfect for a beginning reader, for a moderate reader, for an advanced reader. He is the legend and continues to impact the sport on every level, from young to old, from 2 to 102. Of course, it's going to be Stan Fischler. Now, many followers of the channel are followers of Stan Fischler's work or fans. We're not going to go through his whole career, but just the basics, because there's so many books and articles he's done, I don't think anybody can keep up. He's officially called and it's a new term in the last few years, a living hockey historian. And why? Because he's one of the few living Americans to have witnessed the Brooklyn Americans firsthand, having been a fan of the team as a young child before the team folded. Now, born March 31st, 1932 in Brooklyn. He researched impeccably with his wife as well, who was also a great writer. They've shared books through the years as authors. His research in the hockey and New York subway system and the international subway system is unparalleled. He's also a broadcaster and professor. Now, during his career, Fischler was best known for covering the Islanders, the Devils, and the Rangers on MSG and MSG Plus. Of course, he contributed to books throughout North America, in Canada as part of Scholastic system, part of major publishing houses in the States and Canada. He also provided a general hockey analysis on MSG and continues to write columns for the network's website. In 2009, he began hosting a feature 5 for Fischler on Hockey Night Live, which lists his top 5 in a random hockey topic. In the 1980s, he was a hockey commentator for the radio show on CBC Radio in Canada. He was also a color commentator for the New England Whalers of the WHA in the first 2 years, in 73 and 74. Of course, I don't know if it rubbed off because he was covering the team. The Islanders won 4 Stanley Cups in the 1980s. Devils won quite a few years later, and of course the New York Rangers winning in 94 under Messi. I think it rubbed off. Before he started covering these teams, the Islanders and the Devils, which was Colorado, and the Rangers were struggling. You know, there was a lot of dark years in the 70s, but he saw them get to the 79 finals. Now, in addition to broadcasting, Fischler is author or co-authored well over 100 books, and I think it's more than that. It depends what you consider like reissues. He's also written on baseball, and again, numerous ones on the New York subway system. His books include, now these are some of the highlights, the Hockey Encyclopedia, Everybody's Hockey Book, Hockey Chronicle, the New NHL Encyclopedia, Cracked Ice, and Insider's Look at the NHL, and most recently, Metro Ice, A Century of Hockey in Greater New York, focusing again on the Rangers, Islanders, and Devils. His most famous subway book is Uptown, Downtown. Now, Fischler contributed to the 2017 documentary, Only the Dead Know the Brooklyn Americans, again, having been a fan of the squad as a youngster before the team folded. Now, on September 18, 2007, Fischler was announced as one of the 4 recipients of the prestigious Lester Patrick Trophy in relation to dedication to hockey in the States. Now, on May 13, 2014, his wife Shirley, a hockey journalist in her own right, and Fischler's longtime collaborator on many of his books, died of cancer at the age of 74. Now, Fischler retired from MSG Network's on-air productions at the conclusion of the 2017-18 NHL season. Afterwards, he moved to Israel so that he could be closer to his son Simon and his grandchildren. Now, October 26, 2022, the New York Islanders unveiled a Stan Fischler press level, dedicating UBS Arena's press level to Fischler. Now, for those who have not read his stuff, let me put this in perspective for you, ladies and gentlemen. It's very simple. Imagine a cup of coffee on the table. a poor writer or someone doesn't do his research would talk about, the cup is hot and the coffee is dark. But when Fischler would describe it, let's say it's right in the cup. It came out of the microwave after 4 minutes in the intense heat of the Citizen no-name heating device. As soon as the cup was put on the counter, it kept its heat for an unlimited amount of minutes until the person who was going to drink it finally took a taste. Fischler could take a 5-second hockey incident, and he's done that, be it overtime goals or whatever. I remember writing about some of the rivalries of the 1970s of what he called the Expansion 12, like the other 6 teams, and some of the write-ups, especially the Flyers and the Seals and the Islanders. The famous interviews he did with Billy Smith and everybody else. Fischler, he's an artist with the word. Now he's different than Ken Dryden, because Ken Dryden was a little bit literally too close. And Fischler was never an NHLer, or maybe never wanted to be, but he's an observer. But just like the great writers, Red Fisher in Canada, and Frank DeFord in the States for different sports, when you say Stan Fischler, he is hockey. Because he may not be Canadian, but the heart of the NHL beats in this man. And if he ever passes from his mortal coil, he recently, I think he's going to be celebrating his 91st birthday coming up, and I hope the trouble in Israel doesn't hit him too much. No pun intended. I would not be a sports editor were it were not for a number of things. Vin Scully, Danny Gallivan, Reggie Jackson following him, the A's of the 70s, Montreal Alouettes, Dallas Cowboys, everybody else. But Stan Fischler, boys, oh boys, oh boys. When I used to pick up books for Scholastic and I saw Stan Fischler on it, it was just like, Robert Redford for a movie or the Beatles for a song or whatever. He is the standard bearer of perfect hockey journalism. Because you read him once, you become addicted. I just picked up a book he wrote about the Russians in the NHL from 1990 at Value Village in Frankton, New Brunswick today, and I was inspired to do the podcast. Again, there's no podcast enough can cover all the bases with Stan Fischler. My only regret, he never wrestling. Can you imagine? But for some reason, like I said, he published reports many years ago, I fell in love with the sport at an early age, and I'll never stop loving hockey. And like I said, the only thing that's going to stop him, But he seems like he seems to be like around forever. When I first saw him, he was like what do you call when CBC were sharing feeds in the early '80s with the expansion of the NHL, and he said, he's seen everything. The Toronto Maple Leaf dynasties, the Red Wings dynasty, the Montreal Canadiens dynasty, the Oilers dynasty, the Islander dynasty, the good Ranger years, the bad Ranger years, the rise and fall of the Devils, But put it this way, when he passes away, I would love to see what the obituary is going to say. You can only say in 3 words, really, he did everything and inspired everybody. Either one of the 3 you want to use. So that's a story about the legend Stan Fischler, one of the greatest writers in the history of the world, not just hockey, but in the world. Because you read him once. Boys, oh boys, oh boys. Shakespeare of hockey. Thanks for listening. Bye.